Hey, welcome. I'm Cath Nolan, once high-performing perfectionist good girl turned goddess of balance, kicking even bigger goals. This is the podcast where we make balance doable for busy, overstretched working women, embracing your voice, honoring your feminine power, and protecting your energy. This allows you to truly step into greatness for the sake of all you hold dear. This is balance, and I am so glad you are here claiming balance for yourself. Beck, we first met in corporate where it wasn't exactly a heavy drinking environment, well, at least from where I sat, but it was certainly not strange to see a wine, a glass or two by 5 p.m. most days. It wouldn't be odd to see a glass somewhere or a beer on the desk by 3 o'clock most days. A glass of something with a lunch, always, corporate lunches, big lunches. So
Always.
yeah, right. So that was the environment we met in. Roll forward a career pivot for you, add in motherhood. What made you question your relationship with alcohol? Like what puts you on the path that you're on right now?
Yeah, that's an awesome question. And I think the time that we met was the
Mm,
time that my drinking escalated. So prior to
mm,
the corporate world, I was nursing, lecturing at uni.
mm,
So I wasn't exposed to alcohol as much. Sure, the doctors and nurses might go out occasionally on a Friday
mm,
night, but it wasn't all the time. So my drinking really escalated when we met, and
mm.
not specifically you and I, but in that environment. I'm not blaming you.
It was
And
fun, but yeah.
it was fun. It was really fun. And,
Yeah.
those things that are fun and then repeated and then
Yeah.
become patterns, and
Yes.
they're more than habits. And so it escalated as I climbed the corporate ladder, as I moved overseas. It was, always alcohol around lunches, meetings, dinners, etc.
Mm,
And then particularly when I went to Singapore for 12 months, the expat community over there
mm,
just congregated nightly at the bar to talk about our day or whatever was happening. That's how you met people. That's how you became friends and developed a community.
mm,
So I always, and even when I came back, moved to Sydney. Sydney drinking culture and recruitment was pretty big, and my
mm,
network building revolved around all of that. So fast forward, I had several health stints where I'd go, 30 days, 60 days alcohol free, knowing that something wasn't right, that it wasn't healthy.
yeah.
And then motherhood. Motherhood was the big game changer for me when
Mm,
identifying the drinking was a massive problem.
mm,
So I had an alcohol-free pregnancy, alcohol-free journey through breastfeeding.
mm,
And then when I decided with the mothers group to have that 5 p.m. wine,
mm,
because I wasn't breastfeeding anymore, it escalated significantly and out of control.
mm,
So I don't know whether it was my hormones or, the fact that I'd had such a long break and my body just
mm,
craved it. Who knows? But we know it's progressive anyway. Alcohol drinking, even if you're in the grey area drinking zone,
mm,
your alcohol always progresses your level of dependence. So for me, it was really bad. And I actually went into rehab for 30 days and took
mm,
myself out of the situation and never went back.
mm,
I decided, excuse me, I decided I had at least three generations of alcoholism in my family.
yeah.
And I knew I had this desire and craziness happening for me that escalated pretty rapidly from grey area drinking to something that was next level.
Mm,
That's it. I'm going to stamp this out immediately.
mm,
Even though I had a newborn baby, she was nearly 1, and that's it. I'm never going back.
mm,
So I made that decision. There were so many factors that I had to look at, and I just knew
mm,
instinctively that I didn't want to be that person anymore. So to answer your question, how did I get here?
yeah.
So from there, I've been sober now for 6 years, or nearly 6 years. It'll be 6 years in February. And I'd always been in, life coaching. I did that 10 or 11, 12 years ago now, and had been in some sort of coaching, even if it's just been in the corporate coaching teams and people and leadership. And I really wanted to niche. And then on my 5th anniversary, which was in February, I just made this big announcement. I'm 5 years sober, and I'd never talked about it publicly before. All my friends knew, or my family, and so when I made that announcement on LinkedIn that I'd been sober for 5 years, the response was insane. And I'm not saying, yes, sure, people were congratulating me. That's all very well and good, but it was, how can you help me? I identify
Wow.
with you. I want to connect with you. This is my story. And I was getting messages still to this day. There's not a day that passes that people don't reach out and have something to share. So that's how I decided to, get further educated in the area. But really, I went over to the States because that's where it's sobriety coaching is accredited. You need credentials over there. And so I did my grey area drinking certification. And now that's what I do. It's a passion, help people in that grey area drinking zone.
Yeah, amazing. Amazing. Beck, grey area drinking is not a term that we use here very much. What does it mean?
It's a really good question. So grey area drinking is that middle ground. So for example, we've got those people who will have a drink or two at a wedding, then not drink for months, and then go to a 50th or a 21st, and they're fine. They go for months without having a drink. It doesn't even entertain, it doesn't pop into their head. Then we've got the extreme that we know, alcoholism, there's a definition, daily drinking. You need to have a medically assisted detox. So if you've got a physical addiction, it's really important that the person has a medically assisted detox, because it's very dangerous to detox from alcohol when you're at that point.
Astounding. Yeah.
The grey area is everything in between. So grey area drinking is binge drinking. It's 5 p.m. wines. It's, daily drinking, even if it's just one or two, it's every weekend. So there's not exactly, the right script's not the right word. There's not exactly the right formula, but it's the grey area. And it's also, people know that their patterns and behaviors, they've questioned them. They've thought twice about them.
Okay.
Yeah. So they drink more than intended. So grey areas really, I think, is the key thing, is drinking more than you intended.
Okay.
You're in that zone.
Okay. And when is it a stage where you need to do something about it? Like, when is it a stage when is it a concern?
Well, it's a really good question. So there's actually no safe level of alcohol. The World Health Organization says that anything over 7 standard drinks, so that's not the wine glasses that I used to pour.
No buckets allowed.
No buckets allowed. That's just the 7 standard drinks per week. Anything over that is considered heavy drinking.
Okay.
So you have to review your relationship with alcohol, if you're doing anything more than that, because it is impacting your health and there is no safe level. So going back to your question, when do I do something about it?
Yeah.
When does it impact your health? When do you have those questions? Is there a little voice inside your head saying, I need to do something about it? Are there any risks associated, with your drinking? Do you set rules and break them? That's a big one. Often people will, right, I'm just going to have one tonight, 1 or 2, and then they have 1 or 2 and that becomes the bottle. Or I'm only going to drink, this is a classic, on the weekends. And then they'll bring that forward to Thursday or Wednesday. And then it's just not Mondays anymore.
Yeah. See, I hear you saying Wednesday, Thursday, but what I'm thinking, what's actually going through my head is I'm only going to drink on the weekends, and I'm only going to drink on weekends. And then you hit Wednesday, feral o'clock, and think, oh, I need to hide from this chaos.
Yes,
We had this conversation the other
absolutely.
day, and for me that draw typically is sugar, or more healthy things like going for a walk. But when you've got kids around and then like we're moving at such a cracking pace of life,
100%.
there's
And it
not actually
becomes a
often a.
ritual.
It does, yeah, and it's an easier ritual. Like it's handy, it's convenient. Yeah,
There's so many people, women who are, preparing the meal for dinner.
yes.
Kids are
Bit for
doing
the pot, bit for the
homework.
glass.
Yeah, let's pour a wine. I'll just
Yeah,
get that relaxed feeling so I can deal with the crazy hours of the next few before
yeah.
they go to bed, or, some might choose to wait until the kids have gone to bed. So,
Mm.
yeah, that's definitely grey area drinking. Yeah.
I have an aunt who has done Weight Watchers forever. Like she's well into her 90s. I think she might have actually just tipped over the 100. And she's on Weight Watchers forever. And so the way that she does her measuring, she's like, okay, so she'll measure what's got to be on her plate. So she'll put the things, I'm looking for stuff I can put on my plate. Here you go. She'll put the stuff that's on her plate. Okay, so I'm allowed to have that much because that's what fits. Excellent. And she'll sit that there and then eat on the rest around the
What?
plate.
That
She's
is the perfect
so,
analogy.
so funny. She's so funny. And she's like a bird. She's tiny. She doesn't need to be on Weight Watchers at all, but just this pattern, So like I mean, alcohol is one of those things that can really easily creep in that way. Like when you are, some in the pot and some in a glass. It's
Creeping in,
it
and
can
it's a
really
progressive,
easily
and
creep
it is
in.
an illness. And it's no, I have to make it really clear
Yeah.
that for people listening, alcohol is one of the most addictive substances on the planet. Top
Really?
three, heroin and cocaine. We, you can't blame people for wanting the alcohol that is perfectly and socially acceptable,
Totally.
that's giving us a feeling of relaxation. So if alcohol was discovered today,
Yeah.
let's say, I digress here, but if alcohol was discovered today,
Yeah.
it's a class 1 carcinogen. It would not make it
What?
through.
Seriously?
I know, even my dog thought that was wild. Sorry. Oh no, what? So it's in the class of asbestos and all those other really carcinogenic substances. It's, known
Oh,
to cause 7 types of cancer.
seriously?
And we as a society have grown up, and for hundreds of years, even Jesus turned water into wine,
So true.
so we accept it. It's socially acceptable. But if
Mm.
it was discovered today, I 100% know that there's not a chance it would be legal. Not a chance.
Mm. Okay, so run us through what are the bad parts about alcohol? Like what are the physical impacts, the health impacts?
Well, so many. I mean, it can be really subtle
Mm.
as, foggy mind. So let's start with the brain. It impacts your brain significantly. It
Mm.
shrinks your brain over, long periods of drinking. And I
Mhm.
don't mean alcoholic drinking. I mean,
Talking about the
weekly
casual
or
smoking.
weekend drinking
Mm.
consistently will, over a long period of time, will have an impact on your brain. It has, the cancer thing. It's known to cause all these other inflammatory responses in your brain, much like sugar.
Yeah.
So it's interesting, some people who stop alcohol have a real craving for sugar and switch and then have to manage their sugar and cravings. Sorry, I've got this throat today. But I understand why, because, that's the physical response. It dysregulates your neurotransmitters. So that's one of the areas that I coach a lot about physiology first. So neurotransmitters are dopamine, serotonin, GABA, acetylcholine. So dopamine is what gives us that, action-packed, we want to achieve something. hit. It gives us that relaxation as well. The serotonin, it causes anxiety, so it lowers serotonin levels in the body. Well, I mean, we know that people who are on antidepressant medication, there's SSRIs, so they're serotonin uptake inhibitors, so they increase the level of serotonin. So when you take alcohol, you're really reducing your ability to produce serotonin. Acetylcholine is for focus, so your body can't focus properly. Even if it's on the weekends, it can take days for your neurotransmitters to re-regulate. Just to name a few, like I could go on and on, but I think for me, it's the anxiety piece is big for people who, let's call it stress, because anxiety can sometimes be a word that people don't like to use. Stress, the lack of balance, focus, the lack of creativity, so many things related to neurotransmitters. It's crazy. And so this is just from small amounts. Consistently. It's not good for your body.
Is there anything that shows that, like, over time, people who drink more, like I'm 48, people who drink at my age don't tend to have as big a, I don't know, there's not as big an outward reaction to alcohol as there is at a younger age. But it sounds like the inner work is obviously terrible. But is there anything that shows about the difference between the impact of alcohol at different ages?
Yeah, that's a really good question, because we do feel invincible at a younger age, and we actually think that it's not having an impact on us.
Totally.
However, it is. So our bodies have the ability to bounce back and, repair and rejuvenate, and you're doing that at a much better pace when you're younger. As we age, perimenopause, menopause for women, everything slows down, and so the body's ability to regulate its hormones, regulate the biochemistry, the neurotransmitters, it takes longer. So the impact physically, and okay, let's stop physically on young people. It may not be as evident immediately, but you're kick-starting the unhealthy journey sooner rather than later.
Sure.
Mentally, though, it can have the same impact. Your neurotransmitters are dysregulated. Using it as a coping mechanism for stress or things that are going on in your life, it's really going to impact your mental health. And mental health's a massive topic. Brain health, I use those terms interchangeably. Mental health in some contexts, and then I sometimes say brain health. It's all the same. Your ability, excuse me, your ability to focus, to have clarity, to have the right level of serotonin, GABA, to, produce the right things that are needed to feel calm and relaxed. Alcohol, takes all that away. So yes, to answer your question, significantly impacts your health and well-being the older you get, particularly physically, but mentally, the impacts are there for every age. But if I can share some outstanding, like what gives me hope, can I share what gives me hope about this? The younger generation are starting to see the light. And there's a whole school of, teenagers and university students who just don't drink. No, I'm not doing that. That's really unhealthy. They know the impacts.
How?
And
Why? What's different?
Education, awareness. So they've been getting it earlier. And I think there's a society or a generation that's coming through that is much more health conscious than we ever were. And I wonder, and I hope, in 20 years' time, are we going to look back at us and have the same feeling the same like smoking is today.
Mm.
Smoking is frowned upon. It is not tolerated.
Yeah.
People hate it.
Yeah.
And sure, there are people who still choose to smoke, but they aren't the mass, and they're
Yeah.
almost outcasts.
Yeah. Yeah.
I feel like that's where we're going with alcohol, and I believe that in 20 years' time, that's where we'll be.
I'm scribbling down some questions because I've got like 3 at the
I
time at the
know
same
it's a
time.
massive topic, and I'm
It
sorry I've been
is.
going all over the shop
That's
because of
fantastic.
light bulb moments coming, and
Yeah.
it's such a big conversation that's really the last year or two has been coming to fruition
Mm.
a lot, and it's great. We need to be having these conversations.
It is great. It sounds like the conversation's more advanced in the US than it is here.
Yes.
Is that the age, the drinking age in the States is obviously 3 years later than it is here? Are those two things related?
It could be. It
Mm.
could be. I don't know the answer to that, but what I do
Sure.
know is they're far more progressive
Mm.
in dealing with grey area drinking. So grey area drinking is really well known, and they
Yeah.
educated about it. They have a very different approach in America to rehabilitation. So there isn't a one size fits all. I will say this, they don't have all the answers,
Yeah.
but they've got a lot more resources available. It's
Okay.
publicly discussed. They have sobriety coaches that are certified
Yeah.
specialists to help people in grey area drinking.
Mm.
So that's where they're more advanced, and perhaps that's
Okay.
why there's a lot more attention.
Yeah.
And Australian teenagers are getting wind of this.
Yeah.
And a lot of that younger generation, it relates back to your upbringing and
So true.
what relationship the parents have with alcohol in the home. And I think by us, our
Mm.
generation thinking about that now impacts the children as well.
Do you have any secrets on how to interrupt the cycles, the intergenerational cycles?
Oh, that's a big, like
It's a
the
huge question.
intergenerational cycles. What I
Mm.
have chosen to do
Mm.
is be the, so the reason I gave up drinking is to be the best role model I could.
Mm.
And what I do, there's no alcohol in the house.
Mm.
And I'm going to choose when she's at that age. She knows. It's funny because I hear a 6-year-old regurgitating some of what I say.
Mm.
Okay, look, let's not go too extreme here because Mummy, so-and-so, Auntie so-and-so, or Uncle so-and-so, or so-and-so was drinking alcohol. Can you believe it? Okay, so we got to find balances. So I'm setting a good example for her, and I hope to
Yeah.
be able to really have solid conversations that our parents might have had with us about drugs or
Mm.
other things.
Sure.
And I think it is about the behavior that parents have in the home, because setting the scene for, how do I articulate this? The parents' relationship with alcohol by demonstrating that using alcohol to relax at 5 o'clock and have a glass
Mm-hmm.
of wine
Mm-hmm.
is a form of role modeling.
Yeah, sure.
So it's all those subtle things that we can do just to be mindful of what our children are watching. They're little sponges.
Yeah.
So I think it's about, drinking responsibly. Is it necessary to have alcohol in the home to demonstrate that? Sure. Drink alcohol at a dinner or at a restaurant.
Yeah.
Do we need it in the home anymore? Unless it's in a social situation.
Yeah.
There's all of those things, and it's up to individuals to make those choices. I
Yeah.
mean, my situation's extreme because I don't have alcohol in my house. And even when I host a party or a family gathering, people
Yeah.
bring alcohol into my house, and everyone knows that they take their leftovers with them. So there's not a
Mm.
drop in the house. And how that plays out for other people, it doesn't need to be that extreme. Having the
Mm.
beautiful, wine cabinet there, but it not being touched, I think that's quite healthy.
Mm.
It represents something that, you do on a special occasion or every now and again.
Mm.
So I don't have the right one answer, but I do want people to think about it, how we can break the generational curse for those
Yeah.
of us who grew up in unhealthy alcoholic environments, or
Mm.
how we are role modeling.
Yeah.
What do you
You'll
think? I mean, is it
mm.
something that you're conscious of?
I actually sometimes doubt myself, and I wonder, I am conscious of it, but I wonder sometimes the words that I use. So for example, if I have cooked with some wine,
Mm.
then there'll be like 2 more glasses in the bottle. And over the next week, I'll drink the 2 glasses. And so, but often I won't drink the 2 glasses. And so there'll be a half bottle of wine in my fridge for 3 months, not touched. And so when I get the glass out, I'm so conscious of my kids saying things like, um, they'll get the glasses out for dinner and then they'll get a wine glass out for me. I'm like, whoa, 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 whoa,
Yeah,
what?
yeah,
When they reach for a wine glass for me, then I start to go through the things in my head of saying, I hardly ever drink. And that it makes me second guess myself
you
and think,
question yourself. You
it
question
makes me
yourself.
question, yeah, am I these words that I'm telling them, am I informing them because that's the way it is? Or am I informing them of that because it allows me to keep that bottle of wine in the fridge? Like, is it actually an excuse or is it real?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think your children actually know how much you drink. And for me, the fact that you can cook with wine and
Mm,
put the rest of the bottle in the fridge and not touch it,
mm,
I'm not seeing a problem here.
yeah. Yeah. But
You know,
I love what you said about just not having it in the house. Like drink it when you're out, but don't have it in the house. That is such a simple swap.
mhm.
My mum doesn't like to, she'll have like maybe a couple of sips of wine every 6 months at a social thing,
Yes.
but she doesn't like to feel left out. So, like, we'll go to the opera house, see the ballet, and at intermission, you order your glass of champagne beforehand, and it's there ready for you at the intermission at the opera house. You sit looking at the harbour, it's gorgeous, stunning,
Beautiful.
beautiful. Like
You want to feel grown up.
you do. And that act of holding a beautiful glass, standing with friends, talking about what you've just seen and what you're about to see next, it is just magical. For as long as I can remember, my mum would order, so she'd order my aunt's glass of champagne and then she would order her glass of water in a champagne glass.
Yeah.
So when we got to intermission, there would be, there's the bar, the people who lined up ordering their whatever, and then there's the other bar with people who pre-ordered, and there's Mum's and Marilyn's, the water and the champagne in the
Okay.
matching glasses. There are just such simple switches that you can have like that, or like not having it in the house. It is so simple, and it doesn't mean you're actually going without the
No.
experience, but you're just getting a much healthier
Yeah. And you just raised
life.
something so important about all my coaching clients. 99% of them, the biggest thing is, how am I going to manage my social life? In
That
fact,
was
I
one
had
of
a
my
big
first
conversation
questions for you
last
when we
night
started
about this.
talking. Yeah.
Yeah, and I get it,
Mm,
because you have to adjust and plan and do all these things. And I say to
yeah.
people, it does take an adjustment, but you can absolutely still have the best social life,
Mm,
because it's the social thing aspect should be about the connection, right? So this
yes.
is how we get deeper in the sessions, but well, what are you actually doing? You want to connect with people and have a good time. And I can absolutely promise you that you are connecting on a more authentic, deeper
Mm.
level when you're not, drunk.
Yeah.
Um, but people still, and I like to have exactly what you said about your mum. I have sparkling water in a wine
Mm,
glass if I'm out for dinner with friends.
mm,
Or if you're going somewhere, there are now so many alcohol-free
that's
alternatives
true. Mm.
that, I mean, I was going to say Bunnings. It's Dan Murphy's, because now I'm actually in Bunnings way more than I am Dan Murphy's. True story. But Dan Murphy's honestly, 5 or 6 years ago when I stopped drinking, it was a little section. They've got a whole section of alcohol-free alternatives. And I'm doing a menopause webinar in the next few weeks for Women's Health Week with Adapt Drinks. And, they're putting these amazing adaptogens in their drinks. And there's so many alcohol-free alternatives that can still give you that sense of being grown up, included, not missing out. And I think the FOMO is often that's that self-talk. Nobody actually cares what thing you drink.
Yeah, that's true.
Is it for you?
Yeah.
Or I did.
Yeah.
I was the ringleader in, making sure everyone's glasses was full. Just to manage, but that was about me. It's not about anybody else. So socially, it's acceptable now to not drink. 2, it's about planning and preparing and, having somebody, letting somebody know that you're at the beginning of your alcohol-free journey and to support you in that, in your crowd, in your tribe, when you're at an event. And look for options, and you can have whatever glass you want.
That's true.
Yeah.
Tell me about menopause. The words popped up a couple of times in this chat.
Yes, so I'm just learning about that. I'm certainly no menopause expert. However, there is a lot of synergies and, things that are happening for women. One of the things that's come up commonly is the sleep. So identifying, is it the alcohol or is it the perimenopause? So I've been attracting clients who are, my age. We often attracts right? So these professionals that are approaching 50, perimenopause or in their early 50s. And so I've teamed up, and in Women's Health Week, I'll be talking about the impacts of alcohol, but partnered up with menopause experts. But for me, there are a lot of, it's hard to pinpoint, or is it the alcohol or is it the perimenopause? Because often symptoms are the same. And I say, well, just get rid of the alcohol and then we can deal with the other symptoms. And it's particularly around sleep. Sleep's a massive one for people. Getting enough sleep, regulating their sleep, waking up. And with alcohol, even if you're a non-drinker and you're that person who has 2 glasses at a wedding, you know about that disturbed sleep. You won't have a good night's sleep. So, and the impacts, for women who I think during menopause is absolutely, perimenopause is absolutely the time. What I know now and what I'm learning, get rid of it. Get rid of it. Your body is going through so much change that you don't need to add another layer of complexity where it needs to start regulating additional hormones and neurotransmitters. Does that answer your question? I don't want to, my area of expertise is not menopause, but I do have a lot of clients who are
The correlation is
perimenopause, and we talk about alcohol and the benefits of removing it.
Yeah, great. Thank you.
Key.
So if somebody is in that stage where they're questioning their relationship with alcohol, they'd like to, can we say, if they're reform curious? I think if someone knows they have a problem, they know they have a problem, right? But if someone is just kind of reform curious, what is the next step? What do they need to do?
The next step. So if you're curious, I always say to people, take a break. Just spend, and I don't say 30 days. These 30-day challenges are amazing, and don't get me wrong, you will see some transformation, but you need 90 to 100 days to really have the significant impacts, because it can take 3 to 6 weeks to regulate your sleep patterns. Yeah,
that's massive. And that in itself shows what a big impact it's having, right?
Yes. because I was speaking to somebody yesterday who's joined my 100-day challenge, and they said, oh, I've done a 30-day challenge before, but I just didn't get the amazing feelings that a lot of other people have experienced. And I said, don't beat yourself up. Not everybody's body's the same. And 30 days is amazing. Don't get me wrong. If you can stop drinking for 30 days, you will see your skin clearing up, and you will start to have more clarity during the day. There will be a lot of things that you notice and you become more mindful of. But some of the bigger things take time. Sleep being one of them, 3 to 6. The rejuvenation and repair of cells. You know, you need 60 to 90 days for anything to start happening. So I would say, so to answer your question and what people can do, take a break. Yeah, that would be my first thing. Just take a break, see how you feel, keep a journal, write down your experiences. If you want to seek support, seek help. You know, obviously, I'm a grey area drinking coach, but there are other resources available. You can tap onto Instagram. There are so many people you can follow that are alcohol-free that can inspire you for tips and tricks just to get yourself educated. I think that's step one, is the awareness, and really acknowledging and becoming educated. That will help you in so many ways.
Yeah.
You know, taking a break, set really clear intentions. So if you want to experience what alcohol-free living is like, set a clear intention for yourself, 90, 100 days, and write some goals down. You know, a couple of goals, or what is your real intention? During this 100 days, I'm going to work on my physical fitness, or during this 100 days, I'm going to become more present with the kids, or, you know, any intention. Seek support. The other thing, start small. Don't set, you know, in 3 months, 100 days, you're not going to change the world. This is going to really give you that peace and find some clarity and mental, physical well-being that you've been looking for, that's been missing. So start small and, you know, evaluate and adjust as you're going along, because I think that's really important. And when you're in grey area drinking, note, this is so important. You may not need a physically assisted or medically assisted, you know, detox and go into hospital and, you know, make sure that you're being assessed physically for seizures and all that. But when you're in grey area, you will feel physical unease. So when you are having a break initially, find things that can calm, center, and ground you, because there will be a physical experience. And that's just part of letting the detoxification process start and eliminating it. So I want people to know that there is a uneasiness and physical experience by not drinking for an extended period of time. And it usually only lasts a week or two, the initial physical symptoms, headaches. Make sure you're drinking water. I always say keep well hydrated, because you can get headaches. They're the grey area drinking physical symptoms and side effects.
So
I've
interesting.
digressed a bit, but does that help?
Yeah, it does. It does. I think that as a coach, I'll often, when I'm sharing with a group on a subject that they want to hear about, I will generally get people who will say, there'll be some people in the group, and I'll say, okay, so what are you going to do from here? And they'll say, oh, this is fantastic. This is like life-changing. I'm really going to think about this some more. I'm like, no, don't think about it. Don't think about it, because if your goal is just to think about it, then it's not going to happen. Life is too busy. It's not going to happen just thinking about it. But some specific concrete steps that you can put into place, like, for instance, the next time you don't even have to be in Dan Murphy's. Woolies, I saw yesterday, has actually a really growing section of their alcohol-free that look like a G&T. It was like an alcohol-free G&T in a cute can. You could swap those in, right? Like, so there are things that you could do today to start that journey to getting healthier.
100%.
There's
So
something
getting
that
rid
you
of
could
the
take.
alcohol.
Yeah.
Um, being mindful of your feeling of uneasiness if you are experiencing it. So know when those trigger times are and do something else.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
if it's at 5 o'clock or if
Yeah.
it's on the way home from work, change it, go for a walk instead. So
Yeah.
even if it's a 10 or 15-minute walk,
Mm.
start changing the habit, because that's not only going to, the walk's not only going to, break that habit, but you're going to feel a sense of calm. Just getting out into the fresh air, you're going to breathe properly. You're going to feel more grounded and centered. So walking's a great one. Getting some other routines. So there's a whole bunch of resources. The mindful eating, look at what you're
Mm.
eating.
Mhm.
You don't, what I found when I stopped drinking is how much time I actually got back.
Wow. Really?
Yes. So what am I going to now do with all this time I
Oh my
have?
goodness. Wow, that's so interesting.
Yeah. So think about it. Just start having a 1 o'clock, 1 o'clock,
Yeah.
5 o'clock wine,
Yeah.
1 o'clock.
Not the first one to call it that, I'm sure.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
I still say 1 o'clock. But you have that first glass of wine, and then for me, I'd finish the bottle. But what was I actually doing during that drinking period?
Mm.
Was it something that was going to change my life and add value to being the role model or enhancing me in any way? No,
Yeah.
I was probably just sitting there watching Netflix or scrolling on my phone or, wasting time. I put that now, I'm studying this, going for walks,
Mm.
choosing healthy things. So the
Yeah.
time you get back, that's another thing that needs to be thought about, because it's amazing. People
That's
who
everything,
are in
isn't
that
it?
grey area drinking will have more time.
Mm. So
So,
interesting.
yeah.
So interesting. The last question I wanted to ask you was something you were telling me the other day about um, the difference between a psychology first approach or a physiology first
Ah,
approach. Tell me about
yes.
that.
So look, my physiology first approach
Mm.
is, and when I say that, it means the physical versus the mindset,
Yep.
is let's get the physiology right. So often, whilst I do everything's all encompassing in my, we have to deal with everything holistically. But
Mhm.
first and foremost, often it's the physical response that people have, that unease, that disconnect, feeling anxious and not grounded. That is the major trigger for wanting to pick up the drink. So I always deal with the physiology first,
Mhm.
helping people, giving them the tools and resources to feel centered and grounded.
Mm.
And I know for myself, if I'm having a stressful day or I'm feeling anxious or, getting flustered with the 6 o'clock kids bed bath routine time or whatever's happening,
Mm.
that now I don't think about the alcohol, but, I have my toolkit of physical things, deep breathing, walking, whatever it might
Yeah.
be, to get my body to feel calm and centered.
Mm.
Then I talk myself, okay, come on, Rebecca, you know better than this. You're the grown up in the situation. She's only 6 or
Yeah.
whatever,
Yeah.
right? So it's a physiology first approach, and we still deal with all the mindset stuff, which is very important.
Mm.
Whereas some, other models are around, we can talk ourselves into anything, or to, think happy thoughts or have positive intentions, which are very true and important and make
Mm.
massive shifts,
Mm.
yes. But if you're feeling uneasy or not connected with yourself, it's a bit more difficult. So
Mm.
that's why I have the physiology first approach with grey area drinking coaching, to at least have a couple of sessions, get people really orientated with getting their body feeling relaxed and
Yeah.
at ease, and then we deal with the rest.
It sounds like you would get the fastest, quickest wins approaching it that way.
100%, 100%. And that is why that's my philosophy,
Mm.
because all the mindset is having a positive mindset, and mindset coaching is brilliant. And, I am massive supporter of it.
Yeah.
However, sometimes where I can't talk myself into anything if I'm feeling unwell or I'm feeling anxious.
Yeah.
So, or stressed. Yeah, definitely. My firm belief that that's the way to go.
Yeah. I see that in my work as well. Logistics have to come first because they're the biggest brain blocker.
Yeah, exactly.
Mm.
Yeah, so that's fantastic. And I would love to just drop in as well. So where I learnt, for anybody listening, there's an amazing TED Talk by Jolene Park. Just Google it on grey area drinking. So it really gives a overview of grey area drinking and the physiology first approach. So yeah, have a look at that if people are interested in learning more.
Thanks, Beck. I believe that women do help other women. I hope that this episode has empowered you to question your willingness to go last. I hope that you will embrace balance, and I'm also hoping that you will help me to help other women to do the same. So how can you help? Show your support for the work. Subscribe and review the podcast here where you're listening. Follow the Goddess of Balance on Instagram to catch some cheeky behind the scenes and extras. Connect with me on LinkedIn and share the posts with your network. That would be sensational. If you have enjoyed this program, this episode, you will no doubt love my group coaching program. You got to find all the links to these in the little written blurb for this episode. Thank you, my friend, for normalizing balance with me. We are raising performance and reputations, wellness and equality. Together, we're creating positive change for working women, starting with you. Sincerely, I thank you for being part of the movement.